Yo, what's going on, ladies and gentlemen? This is your boy once again, C dot to the B dots. And today we are on another episode of Missing the 90s, Season 3. So, today we're going to be talking about a controversial fighting game from back in the day. Not so much today, compared to the standards of today. But back then, it was a big deal. But this fighting game is Primal Rage from 1994. So, I remember the first time I encountered this game. It was at this place called Celebration Station. Now, I don't know too many people who has heard of this place, outside of North Carolina. But it used to be located in Greensboro. So we used to go to this place every weekend, right? And my stepdad, he would drop us off, me and my siblings. And we were there for about 3.5 hours, maybe 4 hours sometimes. Now, I feel like this place was better than Chuck E. Cheese at the time. You know what I'm saying? It was a 2-story building. So, on the lower level, it was like, ticket games. And it wasn't that much on the lower level. You know what I'm saying? But on the upper level, second floor, that's where everything was. You know what I'm saying? Up there, they had the X-Men arcade game. They had Tekken 2, later Tekken 3. They had the Neo Geo NBS arcade cabinets. They had a bunch of stuff up there. You know what I'm saying? They had a couple ticket games up there too. But this is where I discovered a lot of games for the first time. And Primal Rage was one of them. So I remember watching the track mode for this game. And I was mesmerized. I was like very fascinated because at the time I was obsessed with dinosaurs. And then I loved fighting games too. So this was a perfect combination to me. So the first time I played this game, it blew my mind, right? The character sprites were huge, which was a plus for me at the time. You know what I mean? But the only thing was I was terrible at the game at first, because Primal Rage is one of those games that, in order to do a special move, you have to hold down a button, then do the combination. You know what I mean? The game was bloody too. Like, it was very bloody in the arcade. And that was another plus for a lot of people because, Mortal Kombat back then. But this game was obviously inspired by that because it also had fatalities. Now, this is where the home ports come in. So, after the arcade, this game was ported to the Super Nintendo, the Genesis, the Sega Saturn, the PlayStation, and the 3DO, and the Jaguar. So this is one of those games that was pretty much everywhere. Oh yeah, it was also on I believe Game Boy and Game Gear as well. But this is one of those games that was pretty much everywhere. Now, I never played any of the ports outside of the Super Nintendo version, which I still own to this day. And I will say the Super Nintendo version was a pretty decent port. It was pretty decent. You know what I mean? Graphically, it was okay, and it seemingly had everything that the arcade had, except for one thing. One thing that the Genesis did have, though, that this one didn't. From the arcade. So, one fatality from Chaos, right? And this is where the parents started complaining and everything like that. And I was surprised to see that this game was actually rated T for teen. Because if you played the game, certain aspects of it were probably due to the sensibilities of the people today, the sensitive ones, it probably would have got an M rating. But yeah, so it was a fatality that Chaos had, right? Where he pretty much pissed on his opponent and turned them into, well, basically just melt their flesh off. But I'm gonna say this right here. I didn't care about that when it came to the Super Nintendo port, because I felt like regardless, that was a better port. Due to the fact that, for me personally, I preferred the Super Nintendo controller with the trigger buttons up top, the shoulder buttons, rather than the 6-button Genesis controller. I don't know, I guess it's because I grew up with the system. But again, I've never played the Genesis version. And if I ever get a chance, I will play it one day and maybe talk about it. But I want to talk about a few of my favorite, characters though. So one of my favorite characters were Sauron. Because I was obsessed with the T-Rex back in the day. And he was a T-Rex, you know what I'm saying? So I don't know, like, I was very basic at the game. Because at the time, I didn't even know how to throw no projectiles or nothing like that. But he was just my guy, And then my other guy was Talon. He was also the fastest character in the game. You know what I mean? Like I said, regardless of the fact, despite the fact that they were my two favorite characters, I was still horrible at the game back then. You know what I'm saying? But now I think I gotten slightly better. But, the other characters, you had Vertigo, Chaos, Blizzard, Diablo, and Armadon. Which Armadon is not a bad character either. He's just extremely slow. But yeah, man, if you haven't played Primal Rage, definitely give the game a shot. You know what I mean? You would not regret it. It's going to be kind of hard to play the arcade port though, on emulation or anything like that. You have to really dig for that. You know what I'm saying? Due to the coding of the game. But as far as the home ports, for me, I would suggest picking up the Super Nintendo version. That's just my personal opinion. So, again, if you haven't played Primal Rage, give it a shot. You will not regret it. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is my review for Primal Rage. Thank you for listening. And I will be back with y'all in a couple days with another movie review. Alright? I will talk to y'all later. Peace.